welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into something truly mind-bending. The surprising mathematical rules that connect the microscopic spread of cancer with the massive migration of wildebeest. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds impossible. But what if I told you they might actually be speaking the same hidden language? All right, so to really get this, let's set the stage by looking at two journeys that, on the surface, could not be more different. We're talking about completely opposite ends of the biological spectrum here. Okay, first up, I want you to picture the vast Serengeti Plains. You've got over 1 million wildebeest thundering across the landscape. It's just this epic, powerful display of nature, a collective movement on an absolutely massive scale. Now let's zoom all the way in, way, way in, to a world you can't even see. Inside the human body, a silent, microscopic invasion is happening. It's melanoma cells spreading out from a tumor. This process is called metastasis, and it's a migration with truly devastating consequences. So what on earth could a herd of wildebeests and a growing tumor possibly have in common? It sounds like a riddle, right? Well, the answer is pretty surprising, and it all lies in these hidden, universal rules that seem to govern how groups move together, no matter how big or small they are. So how can we even begin to find a common pattern in two systems that are so incredibly different? Well, the answer lies in digging for a set of what you might call universal rules. And this whole explainer is based on some really groundbreaking research from the University of Glasgow. It started with a pretty bold question. Could these vastly different types of movement actually be following the same mathematical patterns? So there's a scientific term for this, of course. It's called collective movement. And once you know what to look for, you start seeing it absolutely everywhere, from a flock of birds to a swarm of insects, or even the cells in your own body rushing to heal a cut. And this quote from the research really hits the nail on the head. What it's basically saying is, hey, forget about the biology, the environment, and the scale for just a second. The underlying logic, the mathematical engine that's driving all of this, it could be fundamentally the same. Okay, so if these movements are following similar patterns, what are the actual forces at play? What are these underlying drivers, as the scientists call them, that create these patterns? Let's break them down. The research boils it down to 4 key drivers. First, there's environmental variability. That's basically moving towards the good stuff, like wildebeest following the rain to find fresh grass. Second is environmental depletion, moving away from places where you've used up all the resources. Third, you've got interactions between individuals, reacting to your neighbors, either bunching up for safety or spreading out to find food. And finally, there's memory, using past experience or just pure genetic instinct to know which way to go. So you have these ideas, these drivers, but how do scientists actually translate that into a mathematical code that you can test and measure? Well, for that, let's take a peek inside their toolkit. The main tool here is a really powerful framework called the advection diffusion model. Now, I know, it sounds super complex, but stick with me because the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. It's all about balancing two fundamental, kind of opposing ideas about how things move in the natural world. So on one hand, you have advection. The easiest way to think about this is movement with a purpose. It's the drift. For a wildebeest, it's seeing a storm on the horizon and drifting towards that fresh grass. For a cancer cell, it might be following a faint chemical trail. There's a goal. And then, on the other hand, you have diffusion. This is the opposite. It's random movement. It's the natural tendency of any group to just kind of spread out, to move from crowded areas into empty space without any specific goal at all. The classic example is a drop of ink slowly spreading out in a glass of water. Okay, so we've got the wildebeest in the cancer cells. We've got this mathematical model. So what happened when they put it all together? What did the math actually reveal? Well, this is where it gets really, really cool. Here is the core discovery. The common ground is absolutely striking. It turns out both wildebeests and melanoma cells are driven by the exact same core principle, moving towards a resource that they themselves use up. But, and this is a huge but, the differences are what tell the real story. And the biggest difference of all, their range of perception, basically how far they can see. So get this, the model showed that wildebeest can perceive and react to things like distant rainfall from tens of kilometers away. Just think about that for a second. A single cell, on the other hand, can only sense what's going on in its immediate microscopic neighborhood. The difference in scale is it's mind-boggling. Okay, so this is a fascinating discovery for science, for sure. But why should you and I care? Why does cracking this hidden code actually matter in the real world? Well, it turns out this isn't just an academic exercise. It has some incredibly important applications. I mean, just think about the possibilities. If we can understand the exact chemical gradients that cancer cells use to navigate, maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to disrupt those signals and stop them in their tracks. If we know precisely what drives a vital animal migration, we can do a much better job of protecting those animals and preventing their collapse. You could even apply the same logic to better control agricultural pests. The potential is enormous. At the end of the day, what this research really shows us is that there might be a universal language, the language of mathematics, that can describe life at every single scale imaginable. It forces you to look at the world a little differently, doesn't it? And it really leaves you wondering, what other fundamental patterns, what other hidden codes are still out there just waiting to be discovered?